This podcast is brought to you by On Track Studio. I'm writing a book rejecting the traditional, conventional marketing methods in the modern day, yet I still get trapped and stuck and cycle in its lies with my own business and with my clients. And I'm going to talk about it today, but I'm also going to share with you the biggest win from last week and what I'm focusing on in business, because I feel like at the moment, what I'm craving from fellow founders and in their content is honesty and just like being really open. I really get a lot from it myself. So I'm going to start doing that with you guys. And I would love if you can let me know how it resonates with you, if it's a good piece of content for you, and we can go from there. So the big win from last week for me was having a really, really successful photo video shoot for a new client of mine. I'm not going to be able to share too much about like what her podcast is about because she hasn't actually launched it to her audience yet, but it's a really cool concept. She has a really cool background in her career, and it's basically for career people, maybe mostly girls, but I think there's definitely a market for guy listeners as well. And it's all about how to like progress in your career. But the fun part and the win of last week was actually being able to, I guess, have like a super creative shoot with her. And we partnered with Anti-Norm, which is our go-to content place because Em is just incredible at what she does, and she's really good at that short form and that creative flair in what she brings. So we always partner with them, so it's really, really fun because I'm really good friends with them as well, so it's always a good time. The reason it was so enjoyable is because I don't know if you guys would know, but every time people who sign up for a production package with On Track, they get a strategy session included in the package. So we're able to go through whatever it is. So it's never like a set in stone strategic plan that I go through with new clients, but it can be anything from like a social media strategy for their podcast. It can be like episode planning. It can be, if you're a business-based podcast, it can be how to actually tie in your services or products to market through your podcast, or it can be about, you know, a bit of both, but it can be a really broad array of different things that we can cover in that strategy session. In the strategy session with this new client, it was pretty broad, but we spent a decent amount of time actually doing the creative planning for the shoot. So that way we were able to just pass it over to Em and say, this is what we want, and work out like the finer details, like the shot list and things like that and prop list with Em from Anti-Norm. But what I love most, and like why I love marketing so much, is because you can get so creative with like the expression of your ideas and how to actually, I guess, like be creative with what you're actually trying to put across. So we, together with the client, she had some ideas, I had some ideas, and we just came together and we were like, okay, here's what we're going to create in order to launch this podcast to her audience. And, you know, it was obviously exciting at the time. Then going from that stage all the way through to the shoot day and seeing it be pulled off, like I already know, I've done so many shoots in my time, that it was a success. Like every single piece of content was either better, like when I was looking in the camera roll after, better than expected, or just as we imagined. And yeah, it was just such a good win. I love when those days happen. Can't wait to see the finals, and I can't wait to launch her show because it's going to be pretty epic. I love it when people can come and they're not just doing the bare minimum with their podcast. Like they're actually obviously having a real purpose behind what they're creating, and therefore there's this real buzz and momentum and energy that can come from it. So that was the biggest win. The biggest challenge was something that I alluded to at the start of this video, and it was definitely to do with the book that I'm writing. So I've been writing this book since the start of the year, so it's sort of 6 months in now, and I have been really challenged by the art of like slowing down in this process, because I have been so conditioned, not just within the industry, the marketing industry, but I guess the larger world of like rushing. And yeah, it's been really challenging for me to like, well, I feel I've done really well because my preference is to rush through, and I have been fighting against that throughout this process and really taking my time, ensuring that I'm writing, you know, every day, but not necessarily attached to the outcome of that writing time. And it's been this really kind of like, transformative process for me, because that's not natural. I just want to like zoom through things usually. So the whole process, I've been really impressed with how I have sat with, you know, time and allowing the creative process of this book. But I got my like final edits from my mentor back from the book, and there was all these suggestions within what he said I should do in the book. And I was reading through the edit suggestions. I was like, yes, I would love to enhance this part, expand on this, you know, go more in depth in certain like protocols that I talk about in the book. And it was like a nodding experience all through the edits, but I felt myself get really overwhelmed with the actual activity of executing those edits because it was kind of given to me in pieces. And, you know, when I had the book written, like a full manuscript, I'm like, do I go in and just like hit edit from like halfway through the chapter? And I think because I was so overwhelmed, I like defaulted into the old way, or what's like accepted in marketing or in creative processes these days, particularly in business. And of course I went to ChatGPT and I was like, you know, uploaded all my manuscripts, my full manuscript and the edits. And I was just like, worked with it to basically refine the book. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, you know, generally speaking. Like I think you can definitely use AI to edit and enhance books without like stripping away the goodness and the essence of you from this creative thing, depending on how you go about it. What the actual project is, I guess. Like I'm not completely anti-AI in this. However, I read it back after. I sent it to my mentor. I read it over, like, you know, glazed through. I'm like, yeah, but that's definitely better. Like kind of rushed it essentially. Sent it back to my mentor. I said, all done. And it was within like 24 hours. So I think he was kind of like, that's interesting. That went really quick. Anyway, he read it through and he basically was just like, it reads like a brochure after chapter 1. And I was like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, that is probably the worst feedback a creative or a writer can have on their, you know, book. So at first I just like sat with that and I was like, do I agree? Do I disagree? I respect this man's opinion. Obviously, he's a mentor of mine. So I read back, I went and looked it through and I read it back and I read it aloud and I was like, oh my gosh, AI has absolutely stripped away the essence of what I was saying. And when I read it back, you know, a bit more removed from the editing process, I was like, this is absolutely not what I want. This is not what I initially said. I didn't notice the big changes that had taken place from the editing process until, after. And this rocked me because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've done it again. I have defaulted into this push mentality within business because, for transparently, this book is to do with business and I do expect it to generate some interest or leads within what I do. So while it is like a creative, you know, expression, it's something that's very deep to me. I'm going to be putting it out to the world and I do expect that it's going to attract clients on some level to me. So I feel like this is where, this layered pressure to like produce within the business space, it comes back and bites you in every single way, everywhere you look. Because even when you are trying to go actively against that, like I am, after seeing so much evidence that it doesn't actually work in the long run in business, I'm still coming up against the program that I have been, you know, programmed in all of my years in marketing. And I just wanted to share that challenge because it's something that I think a lot of founders face and I believe it's due to this more is more mentality. So, I mean, I speak a lot in the book about content and how the world at the moment is just like platforming, like you need more posts across more channels in order to like stand out in business. And I believe this is the biggest illusion of marketing because it promotes like, you know, doing trendy pieces of content, which doesn't help you stand out. It actually may give you reach, but it doesn't give you that differentiating essence that it takes to actually, you know, attract clients and get clients into your world. And it's something I literally think about and writing a book about, yet I fell into just doing it in a different way, but within my book. So with that in mind, I am going to be focusing on business-wise this week and beyond is actually slowing uncomfortably down on my pressure to produce, being in the content space, like literally owning this studio. I am surrounded by people creating content. We produce content like as a service. So we are so in this world and it can be really tempting to get into the studio and, you know, race to produce heaps, just like, you know, I perceive the rest of the world to do. And what I know through my client base and through my lived experience in the space, like creating content, like 2 years ago, I would be posting every day, daily content. Like, I was so in the grind and in the belief that more is more, but then learnt for myself that actually it didn't pay off. The bottom line in business didn't necessarily move based on the amount of content I was putting out there. And it leads to your message being quite diluted in what you have to say, because when you have this pressure on you to actually produce heaps of content, instead of like sitting with what you want to say to your audience, you tend to be like, oh, I've got a recording session coming up, or I've got a post that I need to write. You go into the save folder in your Instagram, or you go look at what you've previously liked on TikTok, and then you might try and replicate what other people are saying. And you will be rewarded oftentimes with reach, but you will not see the actual benefit that most founders are chasing, which is, the bottom line moving in your business, the lead generation, what I call like the result of resonance. So I actually in the book talk a lot about like the world's chasing reach, but what they really desire is resonance, because resonance is what actually leads to purchasing, what leads to fans, like of what you do, loyalty, memorability. And yeah, basically, therefore, my focus for business at the moment is actually to feel that urge to create and actually just wait until I have something worthwhile to say, and then allow myself to come into the studio. I'm lucky because I built a studio, and share, and then allow that content to be cut up and put into other pieces of content to go across my platforms, instead of coming into the studio with the desire or the intention to get heaps of content, because that is where I see many founders be disappointed with results, because they're not actually creating from within, and they're not actually expressing what they really want to say. And therefore, and I'm so putting my hand up and saying I fall for this so many times, like probably more than other people, because I'm so surrounded by the content space and I'm a marketer. So I can really, my feed is full of everyone saying, content ideas, and the fact that you do need to be creating more, because the people who put that content out are the ones actively profiting from it. They might be agencies, they might be coaches, they might be, just the big influencers who have been putting out content for ages, and they've kind of built this brand around this concept. So yeah, I'm basically coming up against these, and I can be swayed. I can like gaslight myself of like what I've actually learned and what I really do know within my own marketing, expertise and experience. I'm not pedestaling myself here and saying that that urge doesn't, like, I don't fall for it too, but I'm sharing it because I think, especially if you're a business who doesn't necessarily do marketing, you would feel like you need to be creating so much more than you are. And that is a damaging thing for founders, because at the end of the day, you should be creating more depth as opposed to chasing more reach. And that's all I want to talk about today. So thank you for tuning in. I will definitely be up in here again when I feel called to speak. And yeah, thanks so much. I will see you next time.